Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here for a very impromptu movie review. Originally, I was planning on watching an old movie, but I don't know, I kind of want to just watch that at a random time where I feel like it, because I think the reason why my She-Devil review was so good is because I was just really happy. And I was just really, I really enjoyed the movie. It's like, oh, that was a fun thing to watch. But so I don't want to watch something and then, have it be forced, have the review feel forced. So I decided to watch something for fun. Once again, I try to watch everything for fun as much as possible, because even though they seemingly don't get as many views as the reviews that I don't like doing, they sometimes do. And with She-Devil, that's almost at 100 views. So this movie that I watched just now, it's called Twisted Pair. And you guys know I already reviewed Fateful Findings with Safi earlier this year. Wow, this movie was bad. It was really, really bad. It was so much worse than Fateful Findings, it's not even funny. I thought Fateful Findings was bad. No, this movie is really, really bad. I mean, from the technical level to the story level, everything in this movie is a failure. There isn't really anything genuinely good about the movie, because here's the thing. Fateful Findings was good because it was good in a good bad way. There was only one element of it that was okay genuinely, and that was the main character's wife, because she's very sympathetic when she gets killed, and then the main character doesn't give a fuck about her. And it's like, wow, this is really dark and really, ugh. I don't like this, how he just completely forgot about his own wife, and, she's such a better love interest than the other random childhood friend. And so I thought that was a semi-good element, if I could even call it that. This movie had nothing. It had nothing whatsoever to latch on to. From beginning to end, this movie was a chore to watch. The main character, Cade, and then his twin brother, Cale, they're robots, quote unquote, but they don't really feel like robots. Because already that Neil, he acts like this in every film he's in. He acts like a robot everywhere. And it feels like in order to play a robot, he should have added extra stuff to it to make it feel more like a robot. Because I really did not get any robot vibe from him at all. And I've been watching the X-Files, where they have these super soldiers. And on the X-Files, they have such a better robot person feeling. So I would say that was a fail. The story is terrible, because I don't even know what the story was. At least with Fateful Findings, there was some stuff. He got the thing from childhood, the black cube, and then he meets his childhood friend again, and then there's a little kind of running plot about evil drug companies, I guess. This movie, what was it? It was it was almost like it was trying to be a superhero movie in a way. And when you have this little of a budget, you just cannot do a superhero movie unless it's a smaller level superhero. Let's just talk about the Toxic Avenger. That was all practical effects with even less money than they spent on this movie, and it was 1,000 times better, because they knew what budget they had. they knew that they weren't going to make like something where Toxic Avenger was jumping on top of buildings, doing all this weird, like blowing things up. So they used what they had, and they made a really good movie in Toxic Avenger. This movie, the people who made it, they should take note for movies like Toxic Avenger, because that movie really, it delivered on its premise. This movie, I don't know what the premise even was. Like, there's these twin brothers, they miss each other throughout the whole movie, and then they randomly meet up sometimes. It's like, there's no point to it at all. Like, they didn't even need to have a twin brother in this movie. Like, the movie was called Twisted Pair. There didn't even need to be any twisted pair in this movie whatsoever. It should have just been Twisted Robot Man or something. Like, there was no need to have this brother character, this extra plot element to crowd up this bad plot, because I don't even know what happened. Like, the whole movie was just a huge... It was not entertaining, too. Like, there were some funny moments once in a while, but it just was not enough to hold an entire movie's worth of attention. It was so boring. I kept on looking at my phone over and over and over again. I just did not enjoy this movie like other people did, because they laugh at it. I just couldn't even enjoy it on that level. Like, it was so... I think the thing that I hate most about it is how artificial it is. Like, just looking back at Fateful Findings, at least that movie had, like, let's see, 90% like practical, real places, 90% real rooms, 90% real buildings. This movie has a community college campus, because here's the thing, I know people have said that before, because it's true. You know, it literally probably is like a college campus. It looks like it, and not in a good way, because it reminds me a lot. I used to do these pre-college camps. I used to do them all the time as a kid. I would do filmmaking ones, and it helped me learn how to make films completely. And this movie, it felt like, almost like, what if an adult took a pre-college filmmaking camp class, and he was like the show-offy brat kid, and so he ended up making a full movie. Because what we did was we just made short videos. Every year it was like different. You know, one year we did PSAs on the rules of the campus, and those were very fun. And then other years we just shot the different classes, the different camps, and that's what we did. But this feels like, what if a 45-year-old Neil Breen joined that pre-college camp, and then he made a movie because he wanted to show off? You know, that's what it felt like. I mean, there were so many green screen scenes in this movie. I hate this green screen garbage. I hate it. It looks so terrible. It's like on one end of the spectrum. Locations really bother me, by the way. Like, for my movie, I purposefully wrote it to where I could shoot most of it in my room. Because my room is pretty cool, and my house was built in the 1800s. And so I knew what I had, and I wrote it to what I had, and therefore it looks and feels a lot better than this shitty-ass fucking movie. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, there's like a spectrum of movie locations. There's like this like bad movie location spectrum that I feel like, you know, we need to talk about, because, you know, what really is the best option? That is oh god, I just sounded like a robot that was like having a malfunction. That is the question, though, is what is the best time? You have, on one end of the spectrum, you have the movie that shall not be named. And that movie was just basically entirely green screen. Even the actors were green screened into the sets together. horrible, horrible, horrible filmmaking on every level. Horrible movie. Horrible. I hate that movie. I hate that movie so much. I would literally, if I had a button that could erase one movie, I would pick that movie that shall not be named. And then in the center, you have boring, real locations, such as in The Room with Tommy Wiseau. You know, when your movie looks like a furniture store, when it looks like a furniture commercial, you know, that's the middle of the spectrum. So you have this, and then on the right-hand side, on the opposite end of green screen bullshit from a certain movie that shall not be named, you have what I like to call the Ed Wood sets, which is basically cheap, anything used to make into a set, and it looks so fake that it looks like a child made it, and it looks like, you know, you have all this cardboard, all this random shit. It just looks and feels like a cheap 1960s Ed Wood classic, quote unquote, 1950s, 1960s Ed Wood classic. Which, by the way, I have not watched any full Ed Wood films yet. We will be watching one at the end of this bad movie month. But I did see behind-the-scenes documentary about his movie making, and I also watched the movie Ed Wood with Johnny Depp. And, you know, so you have this spectrum. And this movie is right in the middle of the left and the center. So it's in this area where it's like you have a lot of green screen, terrible, and it looks so fake because the film is so crystal clear. Like, I really miss film. I miss movies shot on film, because even the shittiest movies shot on film look better than the best movies shot on digital nowadays. Really, the only thing about digital that's good is the convenience. You know, you don't have to take your film to a lab. You can just edit it on your fucking phone. I edit it right now on my fucking phone. That's the good thing about digital. With film, you have this big process, operating cameras that use film as a pain in the ass. It's all a big pain in the ass. I would say the only exception is, like, I guess VHS cameras were okay. Because when I was a kid, my dad rented one, and I held it and I used it a little bit because he didn't want me to break it. And it was semi-easy. And of course, you know, it records, I think, right onto the VHS, but I don't know anything about the editing for that, so that's probably a whole other nightmare. But so you have these different options on the scale. And to me, the good question is to ask, what is the best option? Like, genuinely, what is the best locations on the location spectrum? Where do you think that these little movies should go? Because I really think it should be in the middle of right and center, you know, where you have a lot of practical and then you have some fake stuff as well. Because, you know, a lot of movies, people don't realize, a lot of movies from the beginning of time, a lot of those movies had, like, fake sets, fake everything. Like, they would paint backgrounds. They paint on glass backgrounds for movie scenes, and they look so much better than, like, this green screen trash. And so I really think that that is where to go. This movie is on the opposite end of that, where it's in the middle of the left and the center. So it looks really bad. The main character is terrible. There's no good acting in the entire movie whatsoever. Like, at least Fateful Findings had a couple of fine moments with the wife. You know, maybe I'm biased because I thought she was fucking hot, but she actually was pretty good acting-wise too. I mean, I can separate my attraction and, you know, my opinion on acting for sure. Because in this film, in Twisted Pair, the interesting thing is that in Fateful Findings, you had these main actresses with these fake boobs, and you could clearly tell they were fake. They were like very, very, like just, it looked like a video game character generator model type of breasts. Well, in this movie, it was the opposite end. It was like, instead of getting girls with big boobs, he got girls with big asses. And I kind of liked that. I thought that was probably the only bright spot of the whole film. Especially the main love interest. She had cake for days. Like, I was like, okay, you know what? This is a good love interest. This is somebody that I'd fall in love with as well. But in all seriousness, there was no good characters in the whole film. And now let's talk about the villain. The villain was probably the weirdest part of the movie because he was like a really bad James Bond villain. And to me, he almost acted like he was in a different film. Like, they would cut the scenes of him and they'd show him with like these weird props that he had all around him, and this fairy that would just stand in the corner of a room, and it was weird. It was like, this is like from a comedy hijinks movie, like a cape I don't know what that was. A caper movie, like a really goofy Abbott and Costello caper movie. That's what he felt like, the main villain. He was not scary or frightening at all. And I guess the whole movie was about this main guy, and he's an AI robot person, and he is forced to go after this guy as his mission. And this guy, I guess he wants to have like a super soldier army or something. I don't know. It just, he has world domination plans. God. Ugh. I will say, the only good-looking set, there was one good-looking set. It was good-looking just because it made me want to get into the movie. There was this one part where they showed the villain's house, and he had like a home movie theater set up. And I thought, I'd like to go in there and watch movies on that home movie theater, in that home movie room. Other than that, there wasn't really any good sets in the film, for sure. It's weird, too, because I know other people have pointed this out, but this feels like a huge downgrade to Fateful Findings. It feels like, with a higher budget, I guess it's a higher budget, I don't know. It doesn't look like it. It looks like the opposite. But it looks like he's sort of, like, I don't know, like he thinks that his movie, he thinks that there's something really impressive about it. Like, it's impressive that he can get these stock videos of like soldiers running around. And it's impressive that he can get like pictures of building insides. Like, I could get those at any time right now. I got some stock videos just to make like a pitch trailer on YouTube like a year and a half ago. It took 2 seconds. It was very, very easy, basic bullshit. And it's like, I don't know, like he thinks that he's making like a real movie. And he thinks that like it's very impressive. Like, it's a real movie, guys. Because he's in these buildings and he's doing stuff and there's explosions and he's jumping. And you know what I think too? In terms of movies with twins, this is a very low tier twins movie. Because usually with twins movies, the excitement comes from seeing the twins clash. You see these two people who look exactly alike, and you see them sort of butt heads in every way, shape, or form. And now that doesn't have to be always like negative. It can just be like something just as simple as like work related or something like that. Like a really good twins movie that I watched, I think last year or early this year, it really inspired the film that I'm making, was Dead Ringers. And that film, the way that it used twins, it didn't feel like a gimmick, like, oh, we're using twins. It felt like these are two characters. They're two real people interacting with each other, fucking with each other's lives, and eventually stuff happening. And I just really, really loved that movie, and I loved their relationship and how, we saw them as kids, and we saw them as teenagers, and we saw them in college together, and it was so interesting and so cool. And this movie, the version of interesting for this movie is you have Neil Breen, and then you have Neil Breen with a fake beard and fake mustache on, and they like stand at this, it's so weird, like this trick photography he was doing that looked crappy. Nothing, as I said, nothing in this movie looked good. So, God, this movie was a chore. It was a nightmare to get through. I'm so sad I didn't watch it like drunk or something, because maybe then I would have enjoyed it more. And this movie was short too. It was shorter than Fateful Findings. That's how bad this movie was it felt longer even though it was shorter. And so I guess what happens is like the main AI guy, he like goes to buildings and explodes them. And he like, and I'm not kidding. He sets up like these little bombs and then they explode and he slowly runs away from them like it's just a very casual everyday thing. And then near the end, like the each twin has like some drama with their love interests. And that's a weird thing too, that like in all these Neil Breen movies, there's like a running theme of having like conflict with his love interest, like actual conflict. And it feels like maybe he has some sort of a resentment for a love interest in real life, or maybe he has a really loving relationship, so he thinks that the opposite would be very interesting in a movie, and so because it would be really dramatic. Like, I really can't figure it out at all. Like, there's this weird part where they're like doing like a role-playing game where they're like doing this like a rapist role-play game, and it's not even in a good way, like in a hot way, in a funny hot way, like probably like a 1970s movie would do for sure. Do you guys know any good movies like that from the 70s where they have like a rape game and like it's really fun and funny and it's like really hot? Because like the only movies like that I can think of are like movies where like it's not a role play, it's real, like Last House on the Left and stuff like that. Like, do you know any movies where like they're just playing a game? Because I'd really like to watch another movie with a similar sequence and then compare and be like, see, this movie did it way better. Or maybe I should put that in a movie. Maybe I should just do it myself. Because I'm picturing it right now. Like, I can imagine, like, in a proper, gritty 1960s, 1970s film, you could have, like, a really good sequence like that, and it'd be pretty good. This movie couldn't do that, of course, because most of that sequence just revolved around showing off. Like, he had this little thing with a painting where he got it smashed through his head, and it's like, ooh, wow, this is so impressive. Wow. Not. Like, let's be honest. When we watch movies, do we watch them so we can feel impressed by the various mechanics of the said movie? Like, when you guys watch Putney Swope, if you guys have ever seen the amazing Putney Swope, do you watch that movie to be impressed by anything in the movie? Or do you just watch it to enjoy the fucking movie? Like, let's be honest, nobody is impressed with Putney Swope. Nobody is sitting there saying, oh my god, I can't wait to see how they film that scene in Putney Swope. I can't, what's that fly? There's like a mosquito or something. Nobody's watching that movie to to marvel at the filmmaking etiquette and the filmmaking technical level of Putney Swope. They're just watching the movie. And the thing about Fateful Findings was because it didn't do all this shit with the computer stuff and the green screen. It actually felt like a better movie because it was all real. And so it didn't really feel like it was trying to impress. The worst parts of the movie was where it felt like it was trying to impress, though. Like, you had this one part where he takes his childhood friend that he saves. He walks through a wall with her twice or something. And it's like, oh, wow, it's so impressive that you could do that effect. And because you can tell by the way that he's doing these scenes that he thinks it's impressive himself. And so I don't know, I'm really not impressed. And the moral of the story is really weird too, because then his girlfriend, the big booty girlfriend, I mean, guys, I swear to God, it was like, when you go to the store and you go to the birthday cake section and you just have all these cakes all over the place, and you're just, like, overwhelmed by birthday cake. Like, that's what it was like looking at this character, this main love interest. And, that's really what I think is, like, an attractive love interest, is, like, where you're just overwhelmed by cake. Like, I'm sorry, but it's just, I'm being honest. I mean, what do you want me to lie? Do you want me to pretend like I'm not who I am and what I like and what I want? Like, who cares? But obviously character is important too. And I don't even think my favorite love interests have big asses. I really don't. I don't know. I mean, because, I love Audrey Hepburn, but she by the end of her life, she looked like a Holocaust survivor. So it really isn't all about looks, but I swear, like, this love interest, she had, oh my God, it was like looking at the inside of a 1900s bakery, like with a bunch of old Italian women working in the bakery. And they're working very hard, because old Italian women, they work very, very hard for long hours without much pay. And I'm just imagining here like a 1900s, like a mobster movie atmosphere. And you have these old Italian women, and they're all like bickering with each other. You put too much frosting on the tips. I'm gonna fucking quit. And you're not getting paid. Bam, bam, just slapping each other, just like throwing things at each other. Hey, what's going on? And yeah, and then the husbands walk in and stuff, and they're like, what's going on? Those are the owners. And I'm just picturing, like, looking in on this scene, like, with, like, a foggy window, and I'm, like, a starving homeless child looking in on this. This is my food rating, by the way. I look in on this scene, and you see these just, all this cake. You see all these beautiful wedding cakes that have been bought by, married couples that are going to pick them up. You see all this frosting just going everywhere. Just, oh, yeah. And you see, it's all vanilla frosting, too, of course, because in the 1900s, you got vanilla frosting or you didn't get any frosting. Yeah, what? No, okay, if you didn't get vanilla, you got lemon glaze or some shitty-ass frosting. Nobody had chocolate. Nobody got chocolate frosting in the 1900s, okay? You got vanilla or you got nothing. And I'm seeing these old Italian women, they are slaving over these cakes. And it's like, oh, this is such a hot scene, because it's like, there's nothing sexier than just seeing, like, art made, just seeing, like, beautiful art made right in front of you, and watching people make cakes and decorate them and do, like, the piping and stuff. Just imagining, like, just a whole room full of Italian women, and, like, their smoke and their steam, and maybe to the point of where they unbutton their outfits a little bit, and it's just like, oh, God, yeah. And you can smell the cake through the window. But here's the thing. You're a little homeless boy. You're a little starving homeless boy, and you can't get into that bakery at all. No. If you try to go into that bakery, they will call the police and then shoot at you with big booming shotguns. They'll get the mafia to come running over to get you, and it's going to be a very bloody scene. It's going to be called the Massacre of Bakery Street or something, and you cannot get in there. It's like, that's what this movie is that, like, I want to like the movie. I want to get into the movie. I want to see what's happening and, understand what he's trying to say. But I just can't, because the movie won't let me. Like, I can't even decipher what the movie's about. I can't identify with the characters. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they don't look like me, because I'm not a racist piece of shit person who can only identify with someone with the same skin tone as themselves. I'm just saying, like, in terms of character, like, these characters are so cold and so fake and cardboard cutouts that there's nothing about them that makes me like them. And I think that's the weird part, is by the end, they have this, like, betrayal, where the main character, he gets betrayed by his big fucking bootylicious girlfriend, and she betrays him, and they shoot at each other, and of course he's an AI robot, so he is not really affected. But then there's this, like, weird thing where he can, like, he has his own, like, metaverse, where it's like an AI world inside of his head. And so I guess he, like, gets with her in there, and then he sees his brother in there, so he's happy again. But it's just, like, really weird. It's like, I don't know what the message is here. Like, I guess, like, no matter what goes on in the world, just live in your own world, which I guess is pretty hot, because, I'm going to do an interview at some point. I don't know when the interview is going to happen, because the person keeps on rescheduling. But I have my own little world that I'm living in right now because of a strange situation that I have basically put myself into. So I can understand that message, but I just don't feel like it was portrayed well, and I really don't know if that is the real message. So I wouldn't recommend this movie. It was a headache. It was painful, and the best part about it was when it was over, because that was the part where I could go outside and complain about it, and then probably go inside and look up pictures of the bootylicious love interest so that I can post them on this video, on this review. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to say about this movie. It's trash. It's bad. It's really, really bad. I'd much rather watch, like, older bad movies, to be honest. Like, back when everything was real, because, like, what's next? Like, there's no real animals in this movie. They're all fake. There's no real buildings almost in the whole film. It's all green screen. Like, what's next? Like, are we going to start, like, acting with computer-generated model characters, like, because you can't find actors who want to be in your shitty-ass movie, which is something that I've had to deal with. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wear a bunch of different disguises, Peter Sellers style, to do my film. And I think that that'll be charming, hopefully. And if not, I really don't care, because it's the only option that I have. And even if I did have the option to use fake models of like 3D animated people, I wouldn't use them. You know why? Because it's more charming when things are real. Because when things are real in a movie, it reminds you of like home movies. Like movies in general are like giant, I like to imagine them as like giant scrapbooks where you open them up and you see these different worlds and you see all these different characters and you just go inside that world for a little bit. And when everything is real, it's a lot more likable. It's a lot more easy to like that than to open up a scrapbook and it's like, oh wow, these are all a bunch of fake pictures. Like, oh wow, Marco, look at that picture where you photoshopped yourself there with a group of friends and a girlfriend and stuff. Like, oh wow, I'm so happy for you. Oh look, Marco, that's you at the White House. Oh look, Marco, that's you in space. Wow, like that's queer. That's queer and creepy, and it just isn't good. So please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of Twisted Pair. I know a lot of people like it, and I know why, because it's funny in a bad way. But I honestly, I couldn't even enjoy it that much on that level, because it was so fake and so cold and just so cardboardy and just ugh. And then please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.